Welcome back to the Special Educators Resource Room, where we talk all things special education, student independence, and keeping it real in the classroom. I'm Jennifer from Positively Learning, and if you caught our last episode, episode 116, you know we talked about a real-life success story where I supported a general education teacher who was struggling with students' behavior. One of the key strategies that made a big impact was using social stories. So today we're going to go all in. You'll learn what social stories are and when you might want to use one, how to create them without spending hours, and most importantly, why it is not just your responsibility to change student behavior. Plus, I've got links to ready-to-go social narratives that can make your life so much easier. So grab your coffee and let's dive in. Hey, special educators, I'm Jennifer from Positively Learning. Welcome to the Special Educators Resource Room. If you're like me, you're always looking for ways to save time and streamline your work. That's why this podcast was created, to give you the systems and solutions you need to get your time back. Tune in for tips, tricks, and tools that will help you manage your workload and make the most of your time. Whether you're brand new or experienced, all are welcome in the Special Educators Resource Room. All right, first things first. What exactly is a social story? Social stories were created by Carol Gray in 1991 as a tool to help autistic students understand social expectations in a clear, structured way. But guess what? They can be incredibly effective for any student who struggles with transitions, routines, or unexpected situations. Social narratives are short, structured stories that describe some type of social situation. They explain the expectations and they give students a positive way to respond. They're usually very simple, they're visual, and they work. Let's try out a few examples. Imagine you have a student who covers their ears and melts down every time there's a fire drill. A social story for this might say, sometimes we have a fire drill. Fire drills keep us safe. The alarm is loud, but will only last for a short time. When I hear the alarm, I can take a deep breath and walk outside with my class. My teacher will tell me when it's over. After the drill, we will go back to learning. So see how that works? It explains what will happen, why it happens, and how the student can respond. Here's another example. For a student who shouts out answers instead of raising their hand, a social story might look like this. In class, my teacher asks questions. I get excited and want to answer right away. But my friends also want a turn. When I raise my hand, my teacher knows I have something to say. I will wait for my turn. My teacher will call on me, and then I can share my answer. Again, it's clear, it's simple, it's focused on a positive behavior that we want to see instead of just saying, don't do this. Now that we know what a social narrative can sound like, how do we introduce them to students? So here's the golden rule. You want to use a social story before the behavior happens, not just as a reaction. So of course, sometimes we're playing catch up because, hello, we're in education. But in an ideal world, we want to introduce social stories proactively to help students understand what's expected before they run into a challenge. So here are some perfect times to use a social narrative. Before a big transition. So if students are moving to a classroom, a new routine, or they're going on a field trip, you can give students a heads up on what to expect. You could also introduce a social story before a social situation. So if you have a student struggling with turn taking, personal space, or greetings, a social story can help them practice. You can introduce a social narrative before a known trigger. If a student has anxiety about fire drills, assemblies, or cafeteria noise, a social story can help ease their stress. You can also use a social story before the new skill is needed. Washing hands properly, using a quiet voice indoors, asking for a break instead of shutting down. Social stories give students a plan for what to do. Now, repetition is key. You're not going to just use a social story, read it one time, and it's there. It's something you want to review consistently so that it sticks. In episode 116, I mentioned that I used a social story to support a student who is struggling with disruptive behavior in the classroom. We met every morning just for a few minutes to review the story, not because the student couldn't remember the story or needed help reading it on their own, but because it was just a very positive way to start the day. This student loved this story that the student felt was created just for them, because it was, and it was just a great way to start the day off on the right foot. Now, I know what you're thinking. This sounds great, but when do I have time to actually make these? Well, the good news is you don't have to start from scratch. But if you do want to create one, a personalized social narrative, here's a quick and easy formula. It's the 5-sentence formula for writing a social story. Number 1, start with the situation. Sometimes we have fire drills. Number 2, explain why it happens. Fire drills keep us safe. Number 3, describe what the student should expect. The alarm will be loud, but it won't last long. Number 4, tell them what they can do. I can take a deep breath and walk with my class. And number 5, end with a positive outcome. My teacher will tell me when it's over and we'll go back to learning. You're going to keep it short, use simple language, and add pictures or icons if possible. And here are 3 pro tips for making the most of your social stories. Can you use student photographs? For example, we had a student who struggled with the lunchroom, and we were working on walking into the lunchroom, using appropriate voice levels, not throwing food. We took photographs of this student doing all of these actions perfectly. And then we created a social story. So he got to see himself in action. The next pro tip is incorporating a beloved character. I've had SpongeBob and the Minions star in many social narratives. And the last tip is to incorporate students' names whenever possible. Because remember, the social story is all about the student doing an amazing job. Now, no worries if you cannot do all of those things. I do have a done for you set that is written in first person, so the student is the star of each story. Let's see if any of these topics resonate with you. I don't run away, a social narrative about elopement, personal space, I'm a good listener, I can control my voice, I feel frustrated, mistakes happen, my break is over, I have self-control, I can ask for help, I can accept help, it's not my turn, interrupting, and these last 4 are all about calming strategies: counting to 10, deep breathing, taking a break, and safe hands and feet. So this set of social stories come in full page stories, so you can display them in a calming corner, send them home, or tuck them in a binder. They also come in quarter-size stories, so you can put them on a flip ring, or they come in a mini book. They also are available as boom cards, which are great because then students can look at the pictures and see the words, but they also have audio, so they can listen to the story. That's great in a calming corner to have a student tap through and listen to each sentence. I'll add the link to these in the show notes. Before we wrap up, I do want to relay an important message. This is not all on you. It is not just the special educator's job to change student behavior. Too often, we feel like we have to take it all on. Solving every behavior challenge, making every intervention happen, and being the go-to for every support strategy. But behavior is a whole team effort. General educators should be part of the process. Families should be involved in reinforcing expectations, and admin should be supporting structured interventions. As special educators, we're bringing expertise and strategies to the table, but we're not miracle workers. The best way to make social stories effective is collaboration. So don't be afraid to share them, teach others how to use them, encourage everyone to play a role in student success. All right, let me step off my soapbox. Thanks so much for listening. Be sure to check out the show notes for the ready-to-go social stories so you can start using them today. And if this episode was helpful, I'd love for you to share it with a fellow educator. Keep showing up, keep advocating, and remember you are doing amazing work. I'll catch you next time in the Special Educators Resource Room.
Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'm dying to ask, what'd you think? Be sure to hit the follow or subscribe buttons so that you never miss an episode. You can find the show notes and links for everything mentioned in this episode at positivelylearningblog.com. See you next week for more special education solutions.